Just giving people a couple more minutes to log in.
Guys, it's Amber here. I'm driving to Gravois Mills, and I have it on so I can listen.
Awesome, Amber. How you're driving? Well, be careful while you're driving. We'll try to give you some good stuff to listen to. Hopefully, we'll be more entertaining than a radio. She has muted herself. Ryan, you picked a good day to golf the other day.
Man, it was beautiful. You shoot
It
3
was.
over?
That was fun.
Yeah, it was. They were packed, though.
They were packed.
That's good.
I told the boys on the way out there, I said, look, let's turn the competition off for the day. What do you say? And we stood on that first tee, and the first conversation was, what kind of game were we going to have? It? How about old guys versus young guys? And I'm like, okay. And then we negotiated a terrible deal with them. They negotiated a terrible deal with us. They gave us a mulligan, a hole.
Oh, that's awesome.
They lost.
Good.
They hated it. So.
Are you working, Ryan? Can you hear? No, I'm going to see if Nathan can. Okay.
Technical difficulty for Ryan.
Yeah, we had some last time too.
Hi, Joy.
As soon as we can get Ryan on, we'll get started.
Yeah, I'm anxious to hear how far you guys got on the last one and what you want to cover on this one. And
I'm going to post the workbook again in the chat in case you guys don't have it. Jeff, would you mind running my chat box for me in case somebody asks questions and I don't catch it?
yeah, so just leave it open.
Yeah.
Is that what you want me to do? Okay.
Helps me out because I don't have dual screens today. So.
Oh, dual screens. I've never had dual screens. I'm not technologically
Me either.
savvy enough for dual screens.
I can't work without them.
Yeah, they're nice to have.
I bet they would be.
Yeah.
I don't ever want them because I'm afraid once you get them, then you have to have them.
Well, I can go ahead and start rolling because my recap might take a little bit while Ryan's getting set up. I'm on the chat box bringing it. That's awesome. So you guys are all familiar with Zoom, so we can kind of skip over the tips and tricks. If you do have any questions, just let us know. But welcome back to Buyer's Conversion Part 2, and thanks for coming back. We're super excited. We have Ryan and Ann here today. Say Ryan, hopefully you can get his computer working. And they're gonna continue talking about how they convert their buyers and working with clients. And you know, thank you guys so much for agreeing to be here. It helps a ton of us, and you guys bring tons of value. So it's been really cool to hear your guys' input to the class. I wanted to do a short little recap of part 1 before we get into meeting number 2, kind of the pre-conversational activities that come in between those meetings, and then getting to meeting your clients again and showing property. So let's jump into a quick recap. So we discussed the importance of having a strategy and a process for your buyers, which sets you apart from the competition and allows you to kind of have conversations that show value to you as a consultant rather than you as just a typical agent. We also talked about how buyers have a risk that's associated with them, and having that process or strategy allows you to kind of weed out those buyers that aren't ready, willing, and able, and that helps you avoid wasting your time and wasting your client's time. We also talked about how we communicate with buyers, doing calls if they're not answering the phone, reaching out via text or even video, emails. Some agents utilize bombs and others do not, but overall finding kind of a unique way that works with you and your business, and something that you're comfortable with as far as communication goes. So just asking your clients ahead of time, what works as far as communication with them, and going that route has proven to be the most effective, and they really appreciate you asking that question. We also talked about the impact of COVID, and that our agents are finding that buyers are still coming and still looking kind of regardless about what's going on. Troy shared a great story about possibly coming into contact, having a client that was contacting him to show property that had been introduced with COVID, and the importance of kind of sharing that information, not only with his team, but with the company. So if, you as the agent aren't comfortable with meeting somebody who had been exposed to COVID, making sure that you're getting that out, because the client could very well come back to a different agent in our company and tell them that they hadn't been exposed. So keeping that communication up with the company and your team can really help you kind of avoid situations like that, not just with COVID, but anything in the future. So it's important to take precautions if you know about them. Some other things that we talked about when we got into the 5 stages of converting a buyer through the first initial meeting with the client was asking for the meeting ahead of time and servicing the lead the minute that you get that lead. Also following up and communicating, from the very beginning, and making sure that, like I said, you're asking your clients what's working for their schedule. We also talked about finding ways to qualify your buyers ahead of time on the phone or in person, having a possible criteria sheet and asking all the questions you can ahead of time to understand kind of what their wants and needs are, who they are as a person before you actually meet them in person. So that helps kind of save time also. Also, we talked about when trying to build rapport, do what you're comfortable with, and that showcases who you are. Don't be afraid to be yourself. And don't be afraid to walk away from a stubborn buyer if you aren't building that rapport and you're just getting brick wall after brick wall. It's okay to walk away sometimes. And then when a buyer does come to the office to meet you, involve the whole office. Get your admin involved, get your other agents involved, make it very welcoming environment. Utilize the conference room or your office, depending on your comfortability. It showcases your professionalism. And then also utilize and build your own buyer's packet. Some of the things that Anne included were her marketing materials, like her new magnets that she just made, a buyer's packet that shows kind of what to expect through the process with her. She even included a Missouri broker's disclosure form and even a buyer's agency agreement that was blank. So utilize any tools that you have and compile them together, and that also showcases your professionalism. And then we talked about the power of having that financial requirement conversation. Troy elaborated on the importance of pre-approvals, and Mel always asks ahead of time, like, are you paying with cash? Ryan and Ann also offer like the information for local lenders and a helping hand if a client is needing a helping hand with financing or getting in touch with lenders. Make sure that you're offering those services and communicating that you can be that facilitator there as well. And also stated that by asking kind of what their financial requirement would be can give them the range of what they're looking for the property. So that way they're not getting their hearts broken looking at something that they may not be approved for.
Kaylin. Ooh,
Yeah.
Hey, me. I got my first chat box hit.
Do it.
And Ann responded to it, but we have to make a bigger deal.
Absolutely.
because this one's sensitive to me.
Okay.
So Ron asked, how do you get your clients to open your BombBomb videos? He said he'll email or text an introduction video and doesn't get many actual plays on that video. So, Ann, you want to take that?
Yeah, when you do the BombBomb videos, you can have the preview like animated, so like wave at them, you know, and smile. And then I also have a whiteboard, depending on what I'm using it for. If I'm using it for like a happy anniversary or of your house purchase or happy birthday, whatever, just a small whiteboard to write on and just kind of, or click link. Yeah, like Jeff's got, I don't have it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I
Just a
do the
small
same
one, waving
thing.
with that board.
Yeah, I do the same thing, and for some reason, I don't know, I'll do an animated, you know, hi, I hold up a whiteboard, hi, Ann, you know, and it's, they'll look at the email, but they don't click the video, so maybe I need to put on a click video or something.
Ron, quick question on that question. When you're facilitating that on BombBomb and setting it up before you send it, are you including the information that you are talking about in the video within that description box where you can kind of type out, you know, what you want to say? Because I've noticed in my past when I do a BombBomb, if I'm including all of the information in that text box that they would hear in the video, they're not clicking the video because they're getting all the information just in that preview. So I think that if you dumb down that preview a little bit and just write, watch this video for more information or something, then you probably get more click plays, but that's just kind of what I've experienced.
Okay, yeah, I was just thinking that maybe they're feeling that it's some kind of a spam video and afraid to open it.
Yeah, and that could be too.
Yeah.
You might even
put
in your subject line like not spam or something.
It's massively frustrating, massively. I deal with it all the time, and I think we have to be as creative as possible. Like Ann said, that's all we can do. Keep them super, super short. And that's hard to do too. And I also think that the less formal it is, the better. But I hear what you're saying. I think that's a challenge. I think we just get so darn inundated with stuff coming to us. Text videos seem to be opened more than email videos recently. So I would encourage you to try that as well.
Especially if you have an iPhone. That was the reason why I switched to an iPhone, because the text video was a lot easier iPhone to iPhone. So.
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys.
Hey, good question. Good question. Just to finish up the recap, lastly, we talked about roles and expectations for both the agent and the client. Some agents utilize the roles and expectation sheets, and other agents just kind of get a feeling for it and talk about it that way. Ryan had said that he doesn't really mess with a buyer's agency unless there's an absolute need, and said that she does try to get a buyer's agency, and Troy said that he doesn't really get one signed until he gets the contract going. So it really just depends on, again, your comfortability level and the situation and who your clients are for that buyer's agency and that roles and expectations conversation to happen. So that's the recap from part one. Now that we've had that first initial meeting and we've closed that initial meeting, identified their needs and wants, and kind of send them on their way to either get pre-approved or come back in a couple of days to meet you again to show property. That's kind of where we're going to pick up today with some of those post-conversational activities before that second meeting to go show property. So Ryan, can you talk about what you are working on in between the first meeting and the next meeting with these buyers? Things like, you know, sending maybe a thank you letter or calling lenders, creating a file.
Yeah, it's again, depends on the buyer on after that first meeting, finding out how serious they are at the time. whether it's just coming back and updating their criteria for them to send them more properties that I think better fit for them. Where was I going with that? But it's really just going to be updating their criteria for them. And if they're more serious and ready to purchase right now, then it's getting them new properties right away, being in constant communication with them, and trying to get them back to look at more properties as soon as possible, especially with the market we have today. If they're not really ready to buy yet, but they were just interested in seeing some properties, I'll update it for them, get them more properties set up. And then I stay in constant communication with all clients like that, to where they either get a phone call, text, or email once every 2 weeks until they become more serious.
Mm-hmm. And can you elaborate too, like, what are you kind of doing in between that maybe Ryan didn't hit on, or that you do differently?
Pretty much the same stuff that Ryan said. I mean, obviously the next day I always follow up and ask them if they have any questions about the properties they've seen, answer any questions that they might have had the day before they didn't get the answers to, check their criteria again, see if it's still the same, or maybe after that first day they want to raise that price point a little bit once they see what's actually out there. So just staying in contact, obviously.
I love the staying in contact part. I want to add that I had years ago I had a coach tell me this, and I thought it was, you know, it was so simple. It was brilliant. There's a massive disconnect that happens between an agent and a consumer. The agent wants to do a good job. They want to listen to the buyer. They want to find what the buyer's looking for. But there's nothing out there. The buyer is waiting for the agent to tell them what's going on. And what happens inadvertently is the agent doesn't call the buyer because they don't have exactly what the buyer wants to show. You know, they can't find what the buyer needs. And then the buyer's out there thinking, why is the agent not calling me? And so in times like these, where our inventory is such an issue, that you might have buyers in your pipeline that you cannot find things for, what we can't do is not communicate with them. So you guys both said, well, I call them every so-and-so. This guy said, if you've got buyers, this coach, he said, if you've got buyers, they need to be touched at least once, probably twice a week, even if you can't find anything. Because, you know, what you will hear over and over and over again in this type of market is, I can't believe it. These people bought, you know, from somebody else. They stopped at an open house this weekend and I lost them. It's because they're getting frustrated on their end and they're changing that criteria that they gave you. Mm-hmm. We got to constantly communicate with them, and we've got to constantly challenge their thoughts of what their criteria is, because they don't know. Mm-hmm. They don't know that 300,000 won't get them every, this house on the water in this spot. It might take 400 or 500, and we've got to make sure their expectation matches the market. Does that make sense? It was awesome to me. I didn't even realize it was going on in the office, and it was going on right here in our office, because the agent, she didn't want to bother those people. Well, I don't really have anything for them. I don't want to bother them. Well, they're going to leave because they get kind of, anyway, I'm passionate about it because I think it happens more often than we know.
No, and I think you made some good points there too, Jeff. And that's kind of where I was going too with this next one. And I'm glad that you said that because it led right into it. But now that, you've done that recap and they're coming back to meet you for the second time, you're getting into that second meeting, your buyers, like before you jump into that car to show property, like Ryan and what kind of recap are you doing with them? Are you going over their needs and wants again to make sure that they didn't change? Are you, asking them any questions? I mean, I'm sure they come back after 2 days too and have looked more at Zillow and thought of other things. So what does that recap kind of look like?
Typically after like the first meeting with them, I have a pretty good idea of exactly what they're looking for. So round 2 of showings, if it goes to round 2, the houses we're looking at are exactly the criteria they gave me. And so we'll go and what I do is I have a booklet too of all of our team's information, and then also all the listings we're looking at in an order that we're looking at them. So as soon as we go to that first showing, they know what we're looking at next. They can look at all the listings before we go view them. And then I'm going to just tell them right up front, this is everything, this house and this house and this house all matches exactly the criteria you gave me. We narrow it down even further after the second round of showings if they still don't find the one they're looking for. But it's really just a recap of the first round of showings, narrowing that search down even more to exactly what they want.
Mm-hmm. Ryan, I'm glad that you brought that up. You were talking about kind of the showing packages that you show them. Mm-hmm. What else do you include other than like the MLS? Do you include anything else?
No, so we've got a team booklet as well that it gives all of our team information on it, but it also, once you go under contract, it gives you all the steps and processes of what to expect after you're under contract. There's a little bit more information, but that's the main things that I normally go over with them on the first round of showings anyways.
That's awesome that you have a packet that goes with it. Mm-hmm. And is there anything that you include with your showing packages other than MLS sheets?
Well, when we go out, you always obviously have the MLS sheets and try to get a chance to look through the seller's disclosures on the properties beforehand to see if there's anything that you need to point out or if there's anything else they need. Pretty much what Ryan said. I mean, it all depends on what point of the process you're in. Mm-hmm. And then when after you're done showing the house, I always say, okay, is this house missing anything on your list? You know, so they realize, okay, it does have a garage, but it doesn't have a 2-well dock or whatever, and see if those objections are anything that you can overcome and figure out a way to fix.
Mm-hmm. Are you guys like highlighting or making any kind of notes and stuff on the MLS sheets and showing packages that you do give them to kind of show that you were paying attention or listening?
Yeah, I do. I'll go through, like, if it's got a 2-car garage, a fireplace, lakefront with a certain amount of water frontage, I will highlight all those things on the listing so they see exactly what it is they told me they wanted. It does have. But kind of like when I go on a showing, I don't follow them through the entire house. I walk in the door and I say, okay, you guys look around. Let me know if you have any questions. At the end of them viewing the house, I sit there and I say, okay, what do you guys think? And sometimes they don't feel comfortable telling me. And I just say, look, this isn't my house. We're not looking for me. You guys are looking for your house. You know, I want it to be right for you. I said, so unless you tell me what you like or don't like, I'm not going to be able to help you find that perfect house. And typically after I say that to them, they tell me, okay, well, we like this, but we really don't like that. And it really helps me narrow down to find the perfect one for them.
I like how you said that you do that with your clients. You don't, you know, you take that person out, like that personal out of it and just like, this isn't about me, this is about you. You're not going to hurt my feelings. That's a big step to have.
Hey, Ann, before we get off that, Ann, yes. how do you discuss the pros and cons portion? How do you narrow the properties down, like, you know, like Ryan was talking about? Because I think that is a very important part of the process when you have buyers.
How do you narrow down the process?
So they've got 10 properties.
I mean, obviously
you know, and they got to buy one.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you've done a lot of research before you even meet them the first time, the second time, the third time. I mean, you go through all their criteria. I mean, you just pay attention to what they want, but also you got to think a little bit outside the box because, you know, they want a 2-bedroom, 3-bath or 3-bedroom, 2-bath, but maybe, you know, there's another property that they could add on to a little bit. It might be a little lower price. You know, I always try to think outside the box too, because there might be other options, or there's a lot next door that'll give them the water frontage they need that they could put a 2-well dock on, you know, so there's a lot of different variables that play into it.
I love that answer, and I love how you were saying you have to think outside the box. And And Jeff, I read what you kind of put in the chat, and I think that you need to say it as well in the class for the people that can't access the chat. Would you mind reiterating what you put?
No, we had it happen again the other day, and it's something that I'm totally guilty of forgetting. And I think that as being in this business, you get immune to it, but it's not, we can't forget to tell buyers that we have the ability to represent them on any property that's listed, on any for sale by owner. If you're comfortable with the way I'm working, you convert the call, and then you actually get to meet them somewhere in there. As soon as you can, you need to actually describe to them, we have an MLS at the lake, so I have access to every listing that any company and any agent lists. Now, I'm going to try to put you on a drip based upon your criteria, but I'm also going to look for stuff that's not on the market, because if you're comfortable working with me, I want to represent you on any listing that you find. Like, you're driving around with open houses, I want you to be able to walk in there and look at the house, but then know that I can represent you if you like this one. And because I think that it happens inadvertently. Kayla had it happen, and I just talked to her the other day about it. The person was referred to her, and she had trouble getting them back to call her back after she talked to them. Well, they finally fessed up and said they were talking to somebody else about another place. And so it spurred that thought. I just think that it's important that we reiterate that to every buyer we're working with, because some of them don't realize it. You'd think they would, but they don't.
I've run into that a lot, to where people, if they're not a real estate agent, they don't know. So they're calling 5 different agents who are listing agents of the property, and they're setting up 5 different showings with 5 different agents. But like, for me, what's worked for me is really building a connection when I'm showing them, because they're not going to just come out and tell you, oh yeah, we're going to view another property after this with so-and-so. But if you build a connection with them at your appointment with them, they tend to spit that out. And at that time, I've converted already probably 3 people just by building a connection with them telling me that. They still go and view the property with that other agent, because I tell them to. And I said, you guys can decide if you want to work with her, that's great. But just know you are working with a listing agent that's not in the best interest of you. They're in the best interest of the seller. And typically I get a call the next day saying, hey, we do like that house, but we really don't want to work with that agent. We'd really like to work with you.
Yeah. And
it worked out.
Ryan, the difference is, I love it, because the difference is you had a direct conversation about it. And that's what Ann put down. She said she has a page in the buyer's info packet that addresses for sale by owners that she goes over in the first meeting. But having a direct conversation about it, causing that thought, brings it out, and it helps you convert more of that, and rather than inadvertently losing them because you didn't. And that's the point I was trying to make.
One other thing that I wanted to talk about before we get into showing the property, while you guys are collecting information, do either of you take copies of your client's driver's licenses before you go show property?
I don't.
No,
I don't.
Just curious. It's something that our workbook included and touched on, not only for you to have the correct information for your client, but in case something happens, or just anything that possibly comes up, just taking a quick copy of their driver's license can alleviate some liability issues or a possible accident or anything like that. You can also maybe even catch somebody who maybe posing as a different person even. I know that I read an article or something the other day of that happening to an agent. So I
do agree with a lot of the risk side of it, of doing something like that. I also think the more you ask from them up front, as far as outside of just wanting to go view properties, is a risk of also losing the buyer, because they may just go to somebody else who's not asking for anything up front and just wants to go view a property, and they'll just go view it with them then.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that. Safety is always important. And the other beautiful thing we have is Google. You know, Google every person that you work with. I don't know what drives people, but we did have a maybe a month ago, we had a deal where we spent quite a bit of time working with somebody, and finally when we Googled them, their CaseNet file was this big and they had all kinds of fraud charges against them. And you know, that doesn't happen a lot, but it's always good. You can find out good things about it too. We had a young couple one time come in and they were looking at big houses, and we were like, this is what we just don't understand. Well, they were lottery winners. And Google will tell you that too. Google will tell you lots of great information that may or may not come out. So a little research goes a long way. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I know in a previous class that we've done in person with this class, is somebody had brought up an app called Spokio too. That's a great app to get info as well.
Yep. One fun thing that I did way back in yesteryear when I was actually showing often is, you know, it was part of that selection process, what Ann was speaking to earlier. I would take my list of homes and I would literally put them on a clipboard, and then I would have a list and they would have a list, and I would tell them, here's what we're going to do. You're going to make notes on these properties, and I am too. But as a visual, when we would come up to a property that they didn't like, after we, in order to get rid of that property, I would literally take it off their board and wad it up and throw it on the floor. And it was a way to eliminate because before I did that, I got into reoccurring conversations about properties that didn't fit. And so I would have conversations around pros and cons, because our market, there's no perfect property. You're either going to be close to the water and have a little steeper driveway, or you're going to have a flat driveway and a few more steps to the water. And you can go through condos, you can go through lake homes, you can go through every property type we have, and you can define the pros and cons with them. But if you allow certain personality type folks to dwell on properties that they've already discounted, you will extend your period of time with them for a long time. So it was a fun thing for me to take off their plate and wad that property up and throw it in the back seat. And we got a kick out of that because I'd do it a couple times a day if I needed to. But it was to get that off the list. Does that make sense?
Yes. The book actually talks about how they rip it in half too.
Right. I just wad it up, throw it in my car. I'm like, don't worry about that. I get that later.
And yeah, it's funny you say that, Jeff, because I just had to clean my truck out because I had papers everywhere in it from ones that aren't interested in it. So
real quick before again we get into just showing, I wanted to touch a little bit on just agent safety, because I think it's very important to touch on in this class. But you know, before you guys go to the car, do you and your teams have anything in place as far as a process or anything for agent safety? I know another team, some team members that we had in the in-person class of this class had talked about how they have a code word that they text or something that lets the office know that they may be in trouble. I'm just trying to come up with different examples for especially new agents getting in, thinking outside the box and having something in place to avoid a possible dangerous situation.
I think at one time our team had discussed a code word, but I could not even tell you what that code word was. I mean, anytime I go and show, my wife knows that I'm showing. She doesn't necessarily know when, but she normally knows I'm showing and around what time I'm showing and stuff. And I don't know, she's kind of the one that if there was an issue, she would know if I'm not home by a certain time.
And do you have anything with you and Chelsea or?
No, I remember a while ago we talked about having something where you could call back to the front office and trying to come up with the code word, just so that they knew you were going out, and you could always call them because you could say to your buyer, well, I have to check in with my office, you know, and so you could call them back. But we never actually came up with what that code word would be.
Yeah. And that's totally fine. But
It might be
again,
something we look into, actually.
yeah, I was going to say, if you guys don't have something like that in place, maybe brainstorm in your spare time. Just like I said, you know, we never know if something's going to happen. It's better to have something in place than not have something in place. So just keeping that in mind, especially in our area, because we get an influx of people that don't live around here. So you just never know. So I always want to kind of get on my soapbox in this class with that, just because I care about you guys. So think about that as well. Okay, now we're going to transition to when we get in the car. Okay, we're going to go show property. What are you guys doing when you get in the car? I know Jeff expresses how he needs like a co-pilot, and other agents state that they like to kind of play a tour guide role as they're going from property to property. So what are some cool things that you do to keep it fun and exciting in the car?
Well, I never take clients in my car.
Oh, okay.
I absolutely like, I don't like any awkwardness. So when you're at properties and stuff is when I have all my communication with them. If I had to be with them the entire time we're showing, there's probably going to be moments where it gets awkward because you're constantly trying to come up with communication, and I don't like that. So I always have them follow me. And then when I'm in my truck, it's my time to amp myself up for the next showing and prepare for it, not trying to keep a constant communication with them.
Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. And what do you kind of do?
I kind of play it by ear and ask them. You know, I say, do you want to ride with me? Some will, some won't. Most of them will. And when you're in the car, that's your time to start developing a rapport with them.
Mm-hmm.
Ask them about their kids, ask them about their grandkids, ask them where they're from, you know, make it personable. Try to, you know, talk about the different restaurants that you go by. Oh, that Wobbly Boots, that's our favorite place to eat off the water, you know, or just the different establishments. I mean, if you ever need your car worked on, that's where I get my car worked on, you know, just let them know you know the lake.
Right. And I think that that's really powerful, especially if you have people that aren't from here. You know, they don't know kind of what the area is like, and being able to point certain things out as you're going down the road to the next property can be pretty valuable sometimes.
You know, it's interesting though how that's one of the great things about real estate, because there is no one set deal. You know, Ryan, I think we might be dealing with more of the follow us now than we have been in the past with the COVID thing. So that's interesting. I always kind of went the direction that Ann went. I wanted to have them in the car, but man, I hated those weird, uncomfortable moments. So like Ann said, I tried to get skilled at keeping conversation flowing and asking lots of questions and being a tour guide if they didn't know the area. You know, if they didn't know the area, it was kind of easy. But I felt like that was my time to learn them. I did try to give them time, but you know, it's cool about what we do. You can kind of establish your own process, and the most important part is having whatever you do, having a design process that ultimately helps them make a decision to buy, because that's what we're doing. We're helping them make a decision to buy.
See, and that's one thing.
And if you
too,
know the lake,
go ahead,
Ryan.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you know the lake and you tell them about the different places as you go by, they're going to call you back when they need an electrician. They're going to call you back when they want the HVAC guy. They're going to, you know, coming back to you because you know the lake, you know who to use, you know, who does carpet, that type of thing. You want to be their go-to person anytime they have a question about anything that's going on at the lake.
Yeah, I agree. And
Ryan, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, even though they're following me, like if we're going to like HH and coming from W rather than If there's a fast route, but there's a slower route where you're going to pass more, I typically take the slower route. So that way we can go through like the old strip and let them see the old strip and how close it is to HH, or vice versa. If you're up in Sunrise Beach, taking routes where they can see more than just taking the quickest route to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's for people who aren't real familiar with the area.
Mm-hmm. I had an agent tell me the other day that if they do go in separate cars, a fun thing that he did was he invested in walkie-talkies so they could walkie-talkie as they were like driving. And so like you were saying, if you're going across like the dam or something, and he could just be like, oh, this is the dam on your left, but still be in separate cars. So I thought that was kind of cool. Lisa, you had a good point too. I feel like if they drive separately, they can have private conversations about the properties too, likes or dislikes. That's a good point also. And another point I wanted to point out from the chat box for those of you that are just watching the video or listening is getting back to agent safety for a second. Ron had made a good point about how you can utilize Facebook too to look up people ahead of time to get that information. You can catch a lot of things on Facebook too, so utilize that as an outlet. Let's talk about how you're getting to that property with your clients, either in the car or behind you. You know, when you're pulling kind of into the, you know, subdivision or the front part of the property, what are some of the things that you guys do, you know, as far as showing the outside of it? Like if they don't like the curb appeal, are you just ripping it up and going to the next one, or are you just still showing them the house?
If they don't like the outside of it, I still always try getting them to view the house. I've had it happen to where they absolutely are like, no, I don't think this one's going to be for us. I'm like, well, why don't we still just take a look at it? We've got it scheduled. We're already here. You guys may end up liking it. And they walk in it and it's like, holy cow, this is awesome in here. And it's actually the one they end up buying. So I still, regardless of what they think of the outside, I still always try getting them to look at the inside. Even if once we get inside, they don't like it, I still can narrow down their criteria of what they like about the house or what they don't like about it.
That's a good point. How you can get a better gauge of what they're looking for and what they're not looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And are you kind of doing the same thing, or are you just kind of going to the next one?
No, I totally agree with Ryan. Try to get them to go in and look at it. I mean, they don't have anything to lose. You've already scheduled the appointment. The people are expecting you to go in. I mean, I hate to fill out a feedback and say, you know, sorry, just didn't like the curb appeal. So you never know. I mean, we've been accused of having magic cameras before. And so a lot of times once you get it, the inside either looks better or worse than they think too. So you just, yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Cav, 2 questions for both of you. First question is there any specific order in which you put the properties you're going to show?
Mm-hmm.
You show your best one first or your best one last? And is there a reason behind that? And then the second part of the question is, I would like to know, when you open a door, what is your style of showing inside? Are you with them all the time? Do you let them walk around alone? Do you?
That's my next question.
What are your different styles? So those 2 questions.
And you go first.
Okay, the first question again was what?
Okay.
How do you organize?
That's what I couldn't remember.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah. So do you have
usually,
yeah.
well, we usually meet at the office. So I'll map out the route from there, depending on either go to the farthest one first or the closest one first and working our way around. I don't necessarily do it according to price points or, okay. I mean, if they're close, a lot of times I'll take them to the one, if they say, this is my absolute favorite, I might take them to that one first. That way they compare everything to that one and see if anything's missing. When I go into a property, you know, I'll say, okay, well, I'm going to go in and turn all the lights on and then let you look around, but then I don't follow them around the whole way. I check back in with them. You have any questions, you know, and if there's any questions, then if it's something that I need to call the listing agent for, I try to call them right away. I call them right then when I'm at the property to try to get an answer for their question. I don't wait till I get back to the office. I try to do it right then.
I love how you said that you kind of leave it up to your clients, depending on the clients is depending on the route that you take or the property that you go to. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I agree with Ann completely. It's kind of the exact same thing I do. If there's a house that I know they really like, but we still have like 3 or 4 others scheduled, I will try starting with that house first. I like them to see the best one. And then if they love the first one, then it makes the next 3 showings that much easier, because they may just walk in right away and be like, nope, I don't like this one compared to the last one. Okay, let's go. It's time to go to the next one. Then there's no point wasting time there. And then as far as how I show too is I go in, I do the exact same thing. I just tell them, I go, okay, you guys are welcome to walk around, take a look, spend as much time in here as you want. I'm going to go around, turn all the lights on and stuff for you as I can. But I remember from before I was an agent, the one thing I hated most was the agent that was following me in every room I went in and just didn't give me my own space to really look or think or discuss with my wife. So I don't do that with any of my clients either. I let them do all their own viewing. Once they're done viewing the house, that's when I ask them what they all thought, if they have any questions and so on.
I like that you don't follow them around, Brian. I think that giving them their space and opportunity to talk and stuff while you kind of hang back is the way to go about it, in my opinion, too.
Yeah.
I know that when I personally went through the buying process myself, I didn't like that either. I wanted to be able to explore on my own way.
Yeah.
Thinking about, continuing talking about showing property, what kind of happens dialogue wise, or that you find when they come back to you and do have questions about the property? Are you guys kind of meeting in the kitchen? Are you going to like where the source is of the question maybe?
Typically, it's normally in the kitchen, because I normally, when they're viewing the house, I hang out in the kitchen. I mean, they may be downstairs. I stay upstairs in the kitchen. When they're done, they normally meet me back in the kitchen, and that's where I do all my questions and ask them if they have questions or what their likes or dislikes were. I don't wait till we leave or anything like that. I do it at the house.
I have a chat question.
Okay, go.
From Lois. How do you handle conversations in the house knowing / or not knowing about the camera placed in the home?
My thing with the camera possibly being placed in the home is if the buyers say something that the seller doesn't want to hear, then they shouldn't have had a camera videoing it.
Mm-hmm.
So if I know there's a camera present and we start discussing any pricing or something, we'll take it outside, or we'll just go back to the office and discuss it. We won't discuss pricing or anything there, but if a buyer says something that the seller doesn't want to hear, then don't videotape it.
Mm-hmm. I like that answer.
Ann, any comment?
Yeah, it's hard to know if there are cameras or not. I try to tell them that there could possibly be cameras, so in any place you go into, you need to be cognizant of that. I agree with Ryan though. I mean, they're going to say some things that they probably shouldn't, and I don't try to discuss any contract stuff inside the house while we're there. I mean, if they say they're thinking about putting in an offer, go outside, we go back to the office. So we try not to do stuff at inside the house, just in case there is a camera you don't know about.
It's so prevalent today. I'm sorry, Kaylin.
No,
it's so prevalent today. For a couple $100, I can buy something that's audio and video. I think it has to be a part of our initial conversation, because just like you pointed out, they don't want to put themselves in a weak position, and we also don't want to cause ourselves to look bad either. I think being aware of that, and Joy just added, be aware of ring type doorbells outside. People are listening and watching everywhere and everything anymore, and just casual conversation can be perceived as something very negative. So I'm glad that's brought up, and I think that we ought to be having that conversation with them early if we can.
Well, Jeff, and that's exactly what I was going to say. You know, that's something that hadn't been brought up with this class before, but I'm so thankful that it did, because you don't think about that. And I think that if you guys include it in either your packets or even the confidentiality statement as a part of your process, it's like, you know, hey, with the way that the world is today and technology, we're not going to maybe even discuss something until we're either back outside or in the car or whatever, to protect them as well. So I think that's a huge thing I never thought about. So yeah, I would definitely agree with Jeff. Put it in your process somewhere ahead of time, or even, you know, before you get out of the car, maybe mention it again just to remind them. That was a great point.
I think too is,
I'm sorry, Ryan.
I was just gonna say, I think too, as listing agents, if you know that your seller has a camera or something, put it in the private remarks to let agents know that ahead of time, which I know a lot of them do, but just to give that extra knowledge of it.
Yeah, especially, you know, within our organization, if we could all be on the same page to kind of have that as a process, that would help.
Mm-hmm.
Lisa, I liked what you said too. I wanted to point it out again for those who can't read the chat box, but I like how you said when you're going and talking about the property, that you utilize the seller's disclosure too to show that you've done your homework and have that available also. So I think that's a good point, if you can have a seller's disclosure to incorporate that within that showing. So I want to talk about how you, like, when you're getting in and you found the property, and actually backtrack, question I want to ask before we talk about making an offer is, what happens when you guys are showing property to clients that day and then they don't find a property that they like?
That's when we go back to the
If they don't find a property, then you do more research.
Yeah, update the criteria. We got their likes, dislikes from that day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then are you guys usually coming back in another couple days? I mean, obviously it probably depend on like the market and kind of what's out there inventory wise, but I mean, are you pushing a little bit further, you know, the next time, finding something else that maybe meets their needs a little bit better?
Yeah, I mean, we can only push so much, because at the end of the day, it's their decision on what they're truly going to like. They can give us their entire list of criteria of what they want. We can find what we think is the perfect house going off of their criteria, and they still might not like it. Mm-hmm. So it's really just a matter of sending them as much information on houses, matching their criteria, and it's going to be up to them whether how quickly they want to come and view it, knowing the way the market is, or not. I mean, it's completely up to each buyer.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for elaborating on that.
Ann, what do you have? Yes. Do you have anything to add on that?
The only thing I might add, I mean, Ryan's right. You just keep looking, hoping something new comes on the market. But after that meeting, they might up their price point a little bit too, mm-hmm. realizing that they can't find what they want. And with the interest rates right now being a little lower, they've got a little bit more affordability maybe. So they might be able to move up a little bit.
Okay. I'm glad you said that. Okay. Here, and this may sound a little bit sketchy, but I'm going to say it anyway. Buyers are liars. The reason that's
we said that Tuesday.
The reason that's been an age-old deal is because it's not because they're lying. They just don't know what they don't know, and they might have set a price point when they can afford a lot more, and they might be willing to change. And so I think something that needs to be discussed. Our market, you know, we have a lot of buyer remorse that happens. Emotions change in the buying process tremendously because they're down here for 2 days with the expectation that they're going to find this perfect property for themselves. And the first day they're giddy and they're excited and woo, we want to see property. And by the end of the first day, they're down in the dumps. Mm-hmm. How many times have you guys seen that? we have to go into cheerleader mode because they're off the freaking cliff on the way home. They're driving 3 hours on the way home, and you get a conversation with them when they're halfway home. They're like, oh, well, we're so disappointed because of the properties we saw, and we think maybe we don't want to buy right now. I mean, those are real conversations that we deal with because of the expectations of the buyer and that what can happen after a day when they don't find what they want. And so, I'm being overly dramatic, but truth is we have to be a cheerleader at times because it's a roller coaster of emotions. And I used to explain to the buyers, hey, look, this is going to be like a relationship. It's going to be a process. This is oftentimes at Lake of the Ozarks. It's not like a regular market when you're going to get everything that you want right away. And so sometimes we're going to have to change area. We're going to have to change criteria. We're going to have to change price range. And I want you guys to know ahead of time that, I'm with you in all this. So, maybe we go out today and we find the perfect one and you buy it today, because that happens a lot. But if you don't get disenchanted. Don't get disheartened. I'm going to learn more about you. You're going to learn about me. We're going to find you that place. So, we kind of have to assume that role. And I think sometimes we don't talk about it, but it's a challenging part of what we do.
Mm-hmm. I love that reassurance, Jeff. You're providing that reassurance, like, hey, it's okay if it's not today.
Right.
We're going to do it together as a team. That's another thing too.
It's a balance between being their consultant, being a trusted resource, and also understanding that we're in the business of sales. Mm-hmm. You alluded to the question, and I'm just pushing the envelope because I'm watching the clock, but I want to know how you all close, because we are in the business of sales. So, Kaylin, I'm stealing your thunder. You had the question. I want to know from these two how you close the deal.
Yeah, well, that's where I was going next. Before I have them answer how they close, though, I was going to ask them, what do you guys typically say dialogue-wise when somebody says, like, they look at a property and they're like, I want to think about it, or I want to do like a lowball offer, things like that, because I know that happens daily too with buyers.
I let them know right up front the way the market is. So if they find the one, they need to react quickly on it because it might not be here tomorrow. And also if they want to do a lowball offer, I tell them my own opinion of what I think the offer is, but I do let them know I'll make any offer you want, but these are the things these are the responses we could get back. The sellers may be willing to come down, maybe not that much, but you might get a good price on it. Or you may piss the sellers off to where they're not even going to respond to you or acknowledge if you want to make another offer. So I let them know kind of all the responses we could possibly get back if we actually make that lowball offer. And I also tell them, I've had buyers in the past where a house has been on the market for 400 and some days, and they waited on it. And then they finally decided they were ready to make an offer. And the day we made an offer, it went under contract. So even if somebody asked me, well, I think we're going to think about it. It's been on the market 200 days. We should have time. You say that, but I'm not guaranteeing that for them because I've had it happen where people have missed out on one because they thought they had time to think on it.
Mm-hmm. And do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I always take the lake stats with me too. And that way I go over, okay, this is your price point. The list to sell ratio runs 96% in this, category of what you're looking at. And the days on market is typically, 103 or whatever. And you have to let them know what the lake market is right now. I mean, it's a hot market, and properties that are priced right are gone. I mean, sometimes they have to miss out on a couple before they realize that, yes, I need to make an offer on it right now, do it today. And then just like Ryan said, if they want to make a lowball offer, I tell them you just run the risk of pissing them off. I mean, you try to put it in different words, but it's exactly what happens. You don't want to make them mad. You want them to at least give you a counter. And likewise, if you've got a seller and somebody gives them a lowball offer, you know, tell them people are still trying to get, they still think they can lowball people, and you don't want to make them mad. I mean, just try to get them to realize that, you know, they need to come in a little stronger. But if I tell them, like Ryan, I will present any offer you want me to, but you know, just hopefully they do respond.
Yeah, here's the repercussions. You might not have any room for repairs. You might not have any room to counter, just any kind of repercussion. That's awesome. And that just leads me to exactly Jeff's question, you know, how do you guys close? I mean, if you know that they're ready, willing, and able, and they're ready to go on that property, what does that kind of sound like or look like? I mean, you probably get paperwork out too.
Yeah, it's no different than they should know by the time we're to that point. They know how the market is, whether it's because they've missed out on a few already, or just because I've explained it to them to where if they find the right one, then we need to act right away. Mm-hmm. So that's what I try letting every one of my buyers know. And it has happened where they've missed out on a few and then they're really ready to react, or they know it because I tell them right up front how the market is. So if you guys do find the right one, we will need to act quick on it just to make sure we can get you guys the property.
So
I love that. Are you, and sorry, go ahead, Amy.
I was just gonna say, if they decide they want to write an offer on it, go back to the office, do it right then. Don't wait until the next day. Do it, because you know you run the risk of somebody else coming in on you. And that's another thing with the lowball offer. It takes more negotiation time typically if they do come back with counters and whatever. And throughout that whole process, somebody else could come in with another offer.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was hoping would come up, because all of us as agents are different. We all have different personalities and different styles. And I see people inadvertently lose business because of maybe a concern that they didn't show them all the properties that they wanted to see, or they wanted to give them time to think. I mean, people are coming to you to buy property. So the reminder that I wanted to throw out is that we're helping them make a decision. So when when they find that house that they want and they're giving you the buying signals, the part of the process that really helps them is just what you said, Ann, helping them make that decision. Literally asking them, is this the one? Are we ready to make an offer on this one? And stopping the process right there. For a while, I got kind of focused on the fact that I wanted perfect contracts. And Mel reminded me one day, she's like, this was a long time ago, but she's like, hey, you can fill that out and get all your questions answered literally while you're standing in the house. And because at that time we didn't have cameras and conversations to worry about, but I mean, you can address the big things quick and fill those out. I mean, because there's a lot of times they'll miss that opportunity when they could have gotten into the deal.
Mm-hmm. I have two more questions before we finish up the class, but one of them is, okay, so you have the offer and you've kind of gone through it and now you're breaking again. So what are some things that you guys are doing, before closing with these clients? And also, what are some things that you do with clients who may have not have worked out in the end? Are you still following up with them? So what are some things that you do from the point that you write the offer to closing to service your clients?
From the time we write the offer, they know all the contingencies and everything that's in place. And I mean, as soon as we get it under contract, I'm in communication with them the next day, letting them know, okay, hey, we got to have your earnest money turned in. You guys have until this day for the title company to receive that. If they're getting inspections, we need to go ahead and get inspections scheduled. And then I let them know from that step on, everything's on me. I'm keeping track of inspections, making sure we stay within our contingency time frame. And then once we get inspections back, we'll go over the inspection report together and see if there's anything that really concerns you that we'll go over on the inspection notice. As far as appraisal, I'll be in constant communication with your lender to make sure we stay within our contingency time frame on getting the appraisal back. Same thing with financing. Anytime I get an update from an inspector, an appraiser, a lender, I'm in contact with my clients, updating them on the conversation I just had. So it's throughout the entire process. I'm doing all the communication with everybody else, and then my buyers are only in communication with me or their lender.
Ryan, you know, the number one thing that I loved about your answer, it was all good, but the number one thing that I love is how you said, you know, it's all on me from this point on, letting them know that they can not have as much stress, knowing that you're taking care of all of that in the background.
Yeah, I just had a buyer the other day. I told him everything. As soon as we went on our contract, I told him what I will all be keeping track of. And they straight up said to me, they go, you make this so easy for us. And I said, that's what I want. I want to make this process as easy and smooth as I can for you guys. And I also let them know if they have any questions along the way, call me anytime. I don't care. I'll answer any question. If I don't know it, I'll find it out for you.
That's fantastic. And any kind of things?
Just to piggyback on Ryan, obviously you're going to be with them every step of the way. You'll be there, but something I have new agents, an idea that I have a whiteboard in my office, and I write on that whiteboard every contract. So I've got the date of the contract, I've got the MLS number, I've got the buyer's or the seller's name, who the co-agent is, what the title company is, if I've received the earnest check, you know, when the title commitment's due, when the inspections are due. So that's a visual for me that I look at every day when I'm in the office, when I can go to the office. But I've got that board, and that reminds me, you know, it has to be done by this day. And obviously keep in contact with them throughout the whole process.
I agree with Ann. I've got that. I'll show you. There's my whiteboard. All the contracts. Red is what I haven't received yet. Green is what I've received. Once all the contingencies are met, it goes to pending on my board.
That's awesome. I love the whiteboard idea.
Yep.
I think Ethan kind of has a whiteboard in his office too, doesn't he?
He does. That's where I stole the idea from.
That's great. So opening it up to you guys real quick before I kind of show you just some action items and close the class. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them now. You can unmute yourself or ask them in the chat, and we can get answers for you. No, nobody? That's okay. So I like to put action items with every class. That way you guys can spar and keep sparring. So some of the things that I came up with, you know, work on developing your find to close checklist, kind of like they put in the book, the 47 vital buyers activities. Produce some qualifying questions, come up with an agent safety, whatever. Think about some of the things that you want to do in the car. I know one topic that came up at the last NC class of this that we had was attending maybe I know Camdenton does like a leadership course every year, like doing something like that to kind of get a better understanding of our area, even past things to bring to the table as you're touring around with clients. That could be beneficial. You know, develop a buyer's guide. Just any of these that you guys want to do. You can do all of them, one of them, or none of them. It doesn't matter. But the point is to act. So if you do something, share it with me. If you want to, you know, practice some dialogue even, or call me even before you're going to meet with buyers or show property to get an extra boost of confidence. You know, all of those things are great things. And then you can take them back the next time that we have this class and talk about it to generate even more ideas. So if you can think of anything else, let me know. I put my email on here. And then also, if you guys love the class and did get something out of it, shoot me just a quick video text testimonial that you loved it, or something that you liked about it, or just a thank you, because we share those too on Synergy to help get participation. The more participation that we have, the more ideas and business things that you guys can do. So I'd really appreciate it. Remember every day to kind of work on those vital activities too. If you aren't working every day on those vital activities, you're going to kind of get lost in the shuffle. So make sure that every find a close system that you have, you're kind of looking at every day. Does anybody have any questions or anything?
Thank you all. I got to jump off here, but I good seeing everybody. Appreciate you, Ann and Ryan, for helping, and thanks for putting it together, Kaylin.
Yeah, no, you guys did awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming.
See you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Great class.
Thank you.